Let's get started today. Here's what I kind of want to talk about. First, I'm going to tee things up a little bit by addressing some of the key components for a good, solid email campaign. And then I'm going to have a great conversation with a very experienced social media and public affairs specialist, Lindsay Metzger, who's a part of the Murray Company team. Man, I love her work, and we're going to have some great content from her. We're going to have a little conversation. Here's why I want to include both of these today. Folks, every single proposal that we're putting together here at the Murray Company in 2020 is going to have a digital and social media advertising component to it, because I believe very strongly we're in an environment where your direct sales work needs to be supported by social media advertising, digital advertising, as well as a good solid email campaign. We can't rely on phone calls and emails alone to get the job done. We've got to be more diversified than ever before, and that's why I want to offer this content up for you today. If you've got a question for us, in your profile there, the online meeting profile that you have, you can click on the chat box and submit a question for us. Sometimes we get to them. Other times, man, we get through about 30 minutes very quickly. We're going to end at 3 o'clock Eastern sharp today for you, so you can move on to some other things. But this is the key today. We're going to talk about digital media and email. So let's get started. Hey, I want to give you a little bit of a kind of a sense of what's happening in email, because I know what's going on. All your members are saying, JP, we get too many emails. Hey, they're getting too many emails that aren't relevant to them. Because here's the sense that we have. Although there are hundreds of thousands of emails being sent every minute, and most people receive more than 100 a day, the emails are declining in terms of their open rates. It's still a very big component of any kind of communications and sales and marketing strategy. Here's why. Man, 50% of all people admit to opening up email while they're in bed. It's a very disruptive technology. The Internet is the biggest invention since the printing press, and more than likely their personal device is shorter than an arm's length away from them. So this email game is still going on. It's still relevant, but it can't live on its own. We're seeing open rates decline to about 34% for marketing email campaigns, 20% from professional services firms like associations. Actually, when we're launching our campaigns right now, we see about a 25% open rate for our very good content that we're sending out. About 25%. The click-throughs are in the low single digits. And we're also seeing an increase when people are clicking through when their subject line is personalized or really relevant. Subject line is really important. We're going to talk about that. And almost half, more than half, of everything's being opened on mobile. So what does that mean for us? I'm going to go through 4 steps for you to kind of build out your best email program. Hey, I've done this too, by the way. Just sending out the email is not the goal. We've got to be very specific about what we want to achieve in any kind of sales and marketing campaign, and email is no exception. A lot of times I would get the sense, oh my gosh, it feels like we ought to do an email campaign for this client, but I really didn't talk about the goal and what we were trying to achieve. Make sure that you map that out. Do you want page views? Do you want people to register for a webinar? Do you want them to download a white paper? What's the goal of the campaign? Who's the audience? Who are you trying to get to, and what have they shown interest in? Go back to your research, your membership surveys, maybe focus groups or interviews. It's very important to provide the content that audience is interested in, and what is then your call to action? Oh my gosh, too many times we send out an email campaign of some type, and there's no real action that we're asking them. My colleague, Ksenia Martin, who's on our marketing and communications team now, man, she's been beating me over the head about this. Hey, it's great that you did that, whether it's an email campaign or whatever it is, but what's their call to action? What do you want them to do after they watch that video or listen to that podcast? Great question. Great point. What resources are you sending through your email campaign? I want to deliver value every single time. Every time I want a white paper or a link to an ebook, something that resonates with that prospective member or potential sponsor or whatever it is. So number one is, why are you doing this? This slide is basically this, guys. What are we going to do, and why are we doing this? That's the big question that we want to achieve, that we want to address before we move on to the next step, which is, hey, friends, if we don't have a good list, forget about doing it. Sometimes we just assume, that the list is good or it's okay. The best associations that we work with right now are diligent about continuously building and improving their email list. And what I mean by that is, and I know this is living in different places in your association, non-member registrants for events, people that are downloading maybe some of your information on the web page. You're getting them from different places and different types of people within the organization. Here's why it's important. My sense is the best email addresses are existing within the organization right now. Because list purchasing, when I hear a client of ours call and they go, hey, JP, we got 20,000 emails. We want to blast this thing out. Boy, I tell you what, I got red flags going up already. Because the best emails that we find are the ones that the association has cultivated over time. Now, here's the other thing. I know that there's churn and there's change in your organizations. We are using a research service called ZoomInfo. And by the way, if you want a copy of this, I'll send it to you. And all these links are live, okay? ZoomInfo is what we use to look at SIC codes, to look at types of companies, certain job description or certain job titles, okay? And this is how we build out our list organically. But we don't buy a list en masse. We build it from scratch based on the type of target audiences we want to reach. And then we verify those emails, whether they're internal or we research them, with a service called Bright Verify. This keeps us from sending out emails that bounce. And the more emails that bounce, the more likely you are to have your ISP provider go, hey, what the heck are y'all doing? Are y'all spamming people? So we verify it for like 1 cent per email. It's a great service to utilize. Then we talk about segmentation. We've got a good list. We know why we want to do it. Then I start to segment. Too many times in particular around our membership email campaigns, we start to do it from a perspective of, hey, we treat them like a homogeneous group, right? When we all know that our members have different segmentations. It may be by size of company. It might be by the type of company that they are. It might be by job title. Let's make sure that we separate these folks out so we can send a conversational, almost unique email campaign for those people. Because what we're starting to hear from our advisory board, from our own internal experts, that this is no longer a business-to-business communication conversation. This is a business-to-human. Because of these platforms like email and social media, like Lindsay will talk about in a moment, we have the opportunity to really have a personal conversation with these folks. So here's what we're starting to see. Executives in small businesses or the owner of that small business, they want survival tips. Medium-sized businesses kind of want to scale. They want research trends. For my friends that are out there in the restaurant and lodging business, they want to see maybe menu trends or consumer behavior types of things because they're not at scale yet to know that on their own. They want access to partnership programs, maybe to save some money. And then the larger companies or the larger executives are very interested in workforce development, talent, advocacy issues, maybe image campaigns that you're conducting. Make this not a business-to-business conversation, but a business-to-human conversation by segmenting this email message out. And then I'll wrap this up before we go into social media about your email message. First of all, pick a platform that you can track the opens and the clicks, because with a limited sales bandwidth, which many of your organizations have, you want to make sure that you're only calling the people that the content resonates with. And you can call them about the email content that you provided. Hey, I don't know if you saw this white paper that we delivered. Oh, yeah, you did, right? That's how we want to approach it. Make sure that you're designing for mobile. Man, I tell you what, one of the biggest challenges we have in the association space is that you have a lot of expertise, and you try to tell them all about it in one email. So what we want you to do is try to make it less than 150 words, a very compelling subject line. Use their first name in that subject line if you have the chance to. One of the things I want to emphasize is sometimes we'll confuse the reader by providing too many links to them. And it kind of clutters our call to action opportunity, right? Because we have so many links that they are confused about what am I supposed to do with the email, okay? Also, think about the time frame. Here's one point I want to make on this one. We're starting to see some trends on our email campaigns and, frankly, social media engagement around different times of the day and even different days of the week. As an example, if you have a Main Street business or retail establishment, 9 to 5, Monday through Friday, may be a terrible time. Actually, Saturday, we found, is a good place to get kind of these small business CEOs because it's actually some time that they can actually engage in campaigns. And also look at utilizing video, infographics, and photos. We know that double-digit improvement in terms of open rates when you do that. One other little hack that I want to give you today is this. After you send a campaign or an email, 2 or 3 days later, forward that email to the people that didn't open it. And where you've got the little FW : with that email, and have that body of the email there, and just put a little note. Don't know if you had the chance to see this. We find that the people that didn't open the first email, 35% open rate on that second email when you just forward the body of the email to them. It's a great little hack, something that we've learned over time. Let's start talking about now digital and social, because I know that's what a lot of you signed in for today. Man, I tell you what, I'm fired up about this. Here's what we've seen. Internet marketing tools are great for small associations because you can grow your expertise. You can learn a lot about how to do this in a very cost-efficient way, and you can actually learn organically what might work for you before you ever decide to start spending money on it. Okay? So that's what we want to talk about today. And I want to do that by introducing my friend Lindsay Metzger. Lindsay is not only our digital media analyst and our advertising specialist here at the Murray Company, she also has her own firm, Clear Skies Strategic Communications. And she's been active in public affairs and big campaigns, not only for trade associations, but even consumer brands. And I want to talk to her about how you might be most successful in your digital and social campaigns and programs that you might be putting together. So, Lindsay, let's get started today. Welcome. I'm so glad you're with us. Let me ask you this to kind of kick it off. What should associations think about when we've got all these different platforms? Where should they be most active, or how might they consider where they put most of their emphasis?
Hi. Hello, everybody. Good afternoon. Happy to be here. Well, I think starting out, really the basic is to start with an audit. So many times in working with associations, I hear I didn't even know we had that. Different people in different parts of the organization are running different platforms, and there isn't, and this is a challenge across the board with associations, there isn't a good understanding of what digital assets you have, what platforms you're running, who's running them, what they're doing with them. So you first have to understand what you have, who's running it, what the goal is, what they're doing with it, and then also part of that, what isn't working. So once you understand what you have, then it's taking a look at, and this is not dissimilar to the email campaign that JP just walked through, is what are you hoping to accomplish? Do you have a Twitter handle just because everybody else does, or are you using it strategically? Each platform has its own pros and cons and its usefulness, so it's understanding what those are and if you're using it to meet the goals of the organization.
Yeah, you know, Lindsay, I had a thought on that too. We were talking about this the other day, about this organic growth that you and I are seeing and a number of our colleagues are seeing with LinkedIn right now. But so you've got LinkedIn and you've got Facebook and some organizations involved in Twitter. And they all have kind of different engagement ways that it's happening. How do you kind of evaluate as an association where you ought to be and evaluate the program itself?
So I mean that's exactly right. Every platform, I think what tends to happen is people have a direction that we want, or a directive that we want to be on all of them, and so they take one piece of content and they post it to all of them, and it's not effective because of what you just said. Each one has its own specific usefulness. So Facebook, for example, is a good community building. It's community building. Those are your people. People have liked the page. Those are your members. Those are your allies. So look at Facebook as a community. So when you're on Facebook, you're talking to your people. With Twitter, it's you're standing on a soapbox, blasting something through a megaphone. Now, that can be strategically used to interact, engage directly with media, with members of Congress, with local city councils. So Twitter is a great public tool to communicate back and forth and engage in conversations that are happening with people that may not be part of your current network. LinkedIn, as JP mentioned, is going gangbusters right now, and people are finally starting to see the usefulness of it beyond just a job search tool. You can connect with others in your industry. You can share information. You can become a thought leader. You can raise the profile of your organization. So there's each one of those as different types of content that resonate and the type of audience you're speaking with. And that's not even talking about the YouTube and Instagrams and Snapchats, which also have a usefulness of a different kind.
Yeah, and one of the things we've also discussed is some of the common challenges that you see associations having. What are kind of some of those most common themes that you're seeing that associations may be doing well and maybe things that they're not doing that great? What are your thoughts there?
Yeah, I mean, I think the biggest challenge is that they want to be everything to everyone at one time, and in doing so, you're not really communicating effectively with any of them. So if you ask an association who their audience is, most of them will say they want to reach the media, they want members of Congress, they want their members, and they want the general public to be educated on their industry. And it's impossible to use one platform to reach all of those people at the same time. Mm-hmm. So just using Facebook as an example, if you are posting content about your annual meeting and highlights of it, media is not really, mainstream media is not really going to care about that. Members of Congress certainly aren't not. General public will not, but that's important for your members. If you're the cleaning association, you're the top 10 ways to clean your counter after cutting chicken kind of content. Again, general public, that's something general public may be interested in, but not so much your members. So it's really bifurcating what content you have and then which audience is it intended for, and then using those programs, including email, to make sure that the content matches appropriately with the audience.
Yeah, so let's go into a little bit, let's dive into some of these things in a little bit more granular way. You talked early on about, how does the association kind of manage or structure or assess their social media program. What have you seen in terms of this structure or management that's working best for some of the organizations that you're familiar with? Is it centralized and consolidated, or do the individual departments and groups do it on their own? A combination of the two? How do you see it working right now?
So, I mean, it's different based on the association. Sometimes the responsibility falls under membership marketing. Sometimes it's communications, and sometimes it's government relations. So you can imagine the content if someone from GR is managing the platforms, it's heavy in policy. If it's someone in membership marketing, it's heavy in webinars and annual meetings and events. So, which it should be a little bit of all of those. So best case is you have a central person who oversees the platforms, but there's input from each one of those departments and content coming in from each of those departments so that everyone understands, here's the goal of this platform, and here's who we're trying to reach, and this is the type of content we need from each one of these departments within the organization to get that content out in front of the people that we're trying to reach.
Yeah, and that's kind of your point then, that the person that's in charge then can determine where it should be, what channel it should be distributed through, right? Based on if it's GR, it's the annual meeting, it's the membership folks, right? So you've got somebody that's turning the knobs based on who the content is targeted for and what the best channel is for that audience. Exactly.
So if you have a GR person who has a big mobilization, they're trying to get letters or calls into the Senate in support of a bill. The person handling the social media accounts can say, okay, this will work really well because this is assuming that they understand the audiences that they have within those platforms. So they can say, hey, this is great for our Facebook community because these are our members and these are our people. This could be good on LinkedIn if we tweak it like this. This may not work on Twitter, so let's just not put it there. So yeah, I mean, it's someone who can see broadly, understand the goals of the organization, and then how the different pieces fit into those goals, and what content can be used to reach the right audiences with the right content, because that's really what it all comes down to.
I know one of the things that we've been speaking a lot about is the advertising and the paid content now, where a lot of these channels we're looking at paid advertising or boosting our content through advertising efforts with all these social media platforms. When should the association, most of them have been putting some efforts into their organic reach, right? When should they start to think about converting some of those marketing dollars into social media paid?
Well, I think it's becoming more and more important that paid is a component of all of the efforts, just in the way, I mean, these are publicly traded money-making platforms, and the way that they're making more and more money is, it used to be and many organizations and corporate entities did, is they spent a lot of money on getting those likes and getting those followers. Because it used to be that if you have 10,000 followers, you post a piece of content, those 10,000 followers see it. And that's not how it is anymore, and it's getting increasingly hard. That's the only way to get those people to see it is to pay to promote it. The good news of that is you can pay to promote it directly to the target audiences you want to reach. So if you only want to reach people who live in Kansas, then you can do that and not waste money reaching people outside of the state. But just as a ongoing day-to-day, if you want people to see your content, you need to pay a little bit to promote it. The only sort of caveat to that is if you have really good organic content, if you have great videos, if you have great images or text quotes, if there are things that really resonate with people, then that can spread organically. But if short of having really compelling content on a continual basis, then you kind of have to promote at a minimum level just to reach people in more.
Yeah, we like to all think in the communication shops of our associations that we would have enough stuff that would go viral or that it might go viral. But the fact of the matter is, hey, probably not. And, you mentioned something earlier about members of Congress, decision makers, members or prospective members, and then the public. We have these different constituencies or audiences. Do you think it is possible that we can reach all of them, and is it a matter of choosing the right platform to do that? Tell me a little bit more about reaching different types of audiences and how an association may target and get really specific on who they want to get to.
Yes, I think so. Especially if there's a paid budget to do it. So you can't, where associations make the mistake is posting, and we'll use Facebook as an example, posting something on Facebook and expecting it to reach all of them and for everyone to care. So if it's an annual meeting notice and you have members of Congress and staff and others following your page, they're going to ignore it. And the more they ignore it, the more Facebook algorithms will think to themselves, oh, this content is not something this person is interested in, so they'll just stop showing it to them. So you can use the platform for that. You just have to pay to promote it. So if you add a piece of content that you want to go to people who work in specific industries or who live in specific areas or who are members of Congress, then you can pay to promote it to them, and everyone else doesn't need to see it.
Yeah, exactly. Or we were talking the other day about how we were considering uploading our email list and targeting that group through Facebook or some of these other ways, right?
Yes, and I think that's an important note in all of this, is that not the way that this advertising works is you can do it two ways. One, you can post something either on Twitter or Facebook or LinkedIn and then pay to promote it outside of that. But anyone who likes or follows the page would see that content. A better way to do it is if you only want if you don't want everyone in your network to see the content, then you can do it in the back end and create something that's specific for members of Congress and push it only to them, or specific only to members and push it only to them, so that you're not diluting your page with sort of random stuff that's for different audiences.
Yes, exactly. Let me ask you this, kind of a final question as we wrap things up today. So I've got a number of associations here looking at their organizations. They may be thinking, all right, I want to maybe think about giving this a shot. What if you were looking to do paid for the first time? What would be kind of the steps or the way to pilot something with a reasonable budget to get started? What would be the thought process and maybe the steps you would use?
I would start with something that you know you're excited about. If you have a good image, if you have a good video, if there's something that your organization is proud of and excited about and you know it's good, I would start with that. I would start with boosting it and try boosting it to this can all be so micro-targeted, and again, you can do it by gender, by interest, you can slice and dice the targeting options a million different ways, but really finding a good piece of content and pushing it to the audiences you're trying to reach, and then see how it goes. And Facebook ad buys can be as little as dollars a day to millions a day. It just depends on how big of an audience you're trying to reach. So it's testing it. If you think you have a great video and you know you're targeting the right people with it and nobody's sharing it and nobody's commenting on it and nobody's engaging with it, then you can change course a bit and know that that's not the right video for that audience. But if, on the other side, you post something and you target the right audience and it's generating all sorts of comments and you're getting new likes and people are sharing it, then you're on the right path. So the beauty of social media is that it's not expensive to test things, and you can also use it as a quick. If something's not working, you can turn it off. If something is working, you can put more money behind it. So I would absolutely start slow and see what's and it could be little things like people like this message over this message or this picture over this picture, and see where people go, and then change course accordingly. But
You know,
when you're
yeah.
doing these social ads, I mean, look at it almost as an expensive focus group.
Yeah. It's incredible to be able to do this and try it out in just a small way, right? And like you said, if nothing's happening, shut the baby down, start it over again. And I think the thing that you mentioned here that's real important as we end today is that it's all about that content, whether it's that email campaign or that digital effort. Right? The content is what's most important, and then match the content with the segment of your audience that it should or you want it to resonate with, right?
Yes. Yep, absolutely.
Hey folks, let me do this. First of all, I want to thank Lindsay. Hey, this was kind of a journey for us, right? We don't do the conversations or the interviews very often. I'm so pleased that you could be with us. Thanks, Lindsay, for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
And folks, we're recording this session. If you want a copy of it, here's the email address, mike@murraycompany.com. Mike's going to send it to you. I'm also going to go through the questions, and if anybody left a question, I'll make sure to answer it for you. I'll do so in a direct email. On behalf of all of us here at the Murray Company, including my friend Lindsay Metzger, thanks for joining us. Let's connect. Have a great holiday season. We'll talk to you in the new year. Bye-bye.